All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like, subscribe, and share. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. You're the lead technician for a 16-year-old girl. The girl has made significant progress and things are going great with the family. The family makes a request that you come over and babysit their 5-year-old son. The 16-year-old will not be there, so they say it won't be an issue. How should you respond? Question is obviously an ethical question. It's going to be a dual relationship, conflict of interest question. The challenging part becomes that you aren't babysitting the 16-year-old, the client, but the 5-year-old son. The family also says, or the 16-year-old will not be there. So the family says it's not going to be an issue. What they're trying to do is convince you that it's okay. You're not with the client. They're not even going to be there. You're going to work with somebody completely unrelated to the case. But we know that isn't true because these stakeholders are part of the environment. So if you're in the situation where you're asked to babysit even somebody who isn't necessarily the direct client, how do you respond? A, you decline. You cannot work for this family outside of your professional responsibility. Yes. If you are working with this family, you're working with this client, you cannot do other things with the family that could impact your relationship with them on a personal or professional level. B, accept, but only if you do it for free. Well, you certainly should not work for free, but you shouldn't accept either. Working for free is likely to lead to even more issues than getting paid to do it. C, accept, but you must be paid as if you were working a regular ABA session. But you're not working an ABA session, you're babysitting. So C is very unethical. This is not an ABA session. You would be babysitting their son, who you have no affiliation with. D, discuss it with your supervisor and ask for their approval first. There's no discussion here, right? There's no approval to be given to babysit a client's sibling. You'll be crossing that dual relationship line. It introduces potential conflicts of interest. You'd have to decline. You cannot work for this family outside of your professional responsibility. Lane is having lunch with Jackson at their favorite sandwich shop, which is very busy. Lane starts discussing one of their clients as they are both behavior technicians and on the client's team. Lane is describing personal details, including information about the family and the child. Jackson thinks Lane is talking quite loud. What might be a problem in this scenario? All right, we've got back-to-back ethical questions, and this looks like a privacy question. Why do we know that? Well, we know Lane and Jackson are having lunch in a public place, a sandwich shop, which is busy. Whenever we're in public, we don't discuss clients, we don't use names, we don't use families, right? We have to be very private about this information. In this case, though, Lane is discussing the client, and he's describing personal information about the family and the child, and he's talking quite loud. Is this an issue given both Lane and Jackson are on the client's team? Is this a problem? Or what might be a problem in the scenario? A, Lane should not discuss other clients with Jackson. Lane and Jackson are both on this client's team. It's okay for them to talk about the client. They both know the information. It's good they're collaborating. Collaboration is a good thing. However, the issue is it's in public and it's quite loud and it's personal details. B, Lane should just talk quieter if he's going to discuss these details in public. That is very subjective. It's not very behavioral. Lane needs to avoid talking about these things in public altogether. You don't know who's listening. You don't know what you're revealing. C, Lane should not discuss clients in public. Yeah, simple solution. Don't do it. Don't discuss personal information about your clients in public. It's an easy solution to this quote unquote problem. D, Jackson and Lane should not be hanging out outside of work. There's nothing in the ethical code about hanging out with coworkers, being friends with coworkers. Jackson and Lane are doing nothing wrong hanging out. The issue is they're discussing public, personal details in public loudly, which could reveal private information, which is not only an ethical violation, but a possible HIPAA violation. To avoid it, Just don't discuss clients in public altogether. You learned how to drive a manual transmission in your grandpa's car when you were a kid. Even though you only ever drove his car, you can now drive a manual transmission in any vehicle if it is necessary. What does this represent? If you've been fluent or studying with me a while, you immediately should recognize this as some sort of generalization question, right? Because you drove a manual transmission in your grandpa's car, and now you can drive the manual transmission in any vehicle. So it doesn't matter what the vehicle is, you can still drive that transmission. So let's map that out. Let's say our response is driving the transmission. You can, or using a manual transmission. You can do it in grandpa's car. Let's say you can do it in your car. You can do it in your friend's car, and you can drive a manual transmission in your neighbor's car. So you're able to engage in this response across many, many, many different stimuli. So what kind of generalization are we talking about? A, response generalization. Response generalization is going to look the opposite. That's going to have a single stimulus and a bunch of different responses. We're worried about this one response occurring with all these different stimuli. So what is represented here is B, stimulus generalization. It's not overgeneralization, C, because you're not driving a manual transmission inappropriately or too much or in the wrong place. You just know how to drive a manual transmission, and you can now drive a manual transmission across a variety of vehicles. And then D, lack of generalization. No, there's clear generalization here, right? Any vehicle that has a manual transmission, you can now drive. What does that represent? It represents stimulus generalization. After spending some time outside with your kids, you are ready to go inside. You say, all right, let's go clean up for dinner. After a pause, you say, kids. They get up and start to go inside, and you say, thank you. What is kids functioning as relative to kids getting up? Now, let's say you just started studying. You should maybe attempt to map this out, right? Because we're looking for antecedents, we're looking for behaviors, we're looking for consequences. So we know you're outside with your kids, you're ready to go inside. So you say, all right, let's go clean up for dinner. Let's assume that's the discriminative stimuli, the SD. You pause and you say, kids, which is going to be the prompt. The kids get up, which is the response. And the consequence is, thank you. So if you map it out like that, question becomes very simple. What is kids functioning as relative to the kids getting up? Well, it's going to be your prompt, because the initial SD is you saying, all right, let's go clean up. You pause, you prompt with kids. They get up, response, you consequence, or you reinforce with thank you. So kids functioning, what is the kids functioning as relative to kids getting up? It's not going to be the SD, because the SD should have been, all right, let's go clean up for dinner. But it is a verbal prompt. You say kids, so it's going to be B, the prompt. It's not a consequence because it's happening before the kids getting up. And of course, it's not D, none of the above. Once you've done a few of these and you get better and better, you don't have to map it out. It's going to be like second nature. You're going to immediately start looking at antecedents and consequences and immediately just being able to identify, all right, this is the SD, this is the prompt, so on, so forth. An initial functional behavior assessment, or FBA, is typically used to identify which of the following pieces of information. Now, this is a pretty straightforward question, but I include it because even when I, long time ago, first started as a technician, the idea of the functional behavior assessment was a little confusing to me, because the FBA is encompassing so many things, right? You've got indirect assessments, surveys, and interviews. You have direct assessments, event recordings, and ABC recordings. And you have your functional analyses, where you have this idea, you're trying to identify the function of behaviors. And all of those pieces are part of our FBAs. So when we talk about FBAs, or functional behavior assessments, we're talking about all of these things, right? You're getting interview data, indirect data. You're getting direct observation, and you're identifying functions. So when we talk about an initial functional behavior assessment, what is it used to identify? A, background and history of the client. Yes, that initial FBA, you're going to get the background and history of the client, or your supervisor is, through indirect methods, surveys, record reviews, interviews, that sort of thing. What about B? Potential behaviors to target for change. Sure, if you, a technician, are helping with the FBA, maybe you're taking event recording data or ABC data or observational data, narrative data, and you're identifying this needs to be worked on, or we can improve this, or we can teach this. And they're potential behaviors. You might be probing potential behaviors. C, the functions of targeted behaviors. Sure, a functional analysis is part of an FBA. And you might be doing brief FAs with your supervisor if there's a behavior of interest, and we want to identify why it might be happening. So when we think about FBAs, we want to think about all of these things, all these ideas, the indirect collection and the direct collection and the functional analyses. The FBA is this big umbrella where all these different assessments fall under. Thank you for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. We'll see you soon.